Given that it's not a final version, right? He can
step in. Okay, so I hereby call the Orange Township Zoning Commission meeting on Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024 to order. May we begin? Okay, who would like to do roll call?
Mr. Wells.
Here.
Ms. Foster.
Here.
Mr. Pierce.
Here.
Mr. Von.
Here.
Okay. Mr. Duffy, do you want to go ahead and start with the reason why we are meeting here today?
Sure. So thank you all for coming out on a cold and rainy Here's Dennis.
Ah, Dennis.
Yay.
Yes. For the record, Mr. McNulty has arrived a few minutes late and will now join us in the meeting.
I saw my first grandson today.
Oh!
From my oldest son, who I never thought that was going to happen. So,
Congrats.
it was a good.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yes, it was a good occasion. Again, sorry I'm late. That's
It's all good.
yeah.
So we are here to talk about our draft zoning code update. So I did put together just a little PowerPoint presentation to kind of go over where we've been, where we are, where we'll be going, and some things that I want to talk about. So my goal tonight is to try to talk about Articles 1 and 2, and we can get as in-depth as you want. Obviously, this is not the only time that we can talk about Articles 1 and 2, but that's just kind of the structure that I laid out for us this evening. All right, so where we've been. So just to catch everybody up and remind everybody, we started this project about 2 years ago, really in earnest. We've gone through multiple iterations of the draft zoning code with our consultant, who is ZoneCo out of Cincinnati. They've done zoning code rewrites all over the country. They're a very good firm. They've been good to work with. So we've kind of worked with them as staff, going back and forth, really over that 2-year period. We did also hold open houses with the public in summers of 2022 and summer of last year, just to get some input that way as well. So we had pretty good turnouts for those events. We were pleased with how those went. And where we are now is basically, we feel like we've taken this as far as we can, just at a staff level. That's not to say that it's a perfectly finished and polished product, but really we need input from you and from others. We have received a few comments from County Regional Planning just as a preliminary review. We've had some informal talks with our trustees, and we want to talk with you all kind of in this more informal setting now, so that hopefully we can iron out any issues before we launch an official adoption process. So, where we are today, again, just looking for your feedback on as many, we can get as much into the weeds as you want. Obviously, we won't be able to go through every word tonight, but, feel free to bring up any issues that you want to talk about. And if it's something that, is very specific issues, you can always meet one-on-one with me as well. I'm happy to do that in person, or over Zoom, over phone, again, whatever is easiest for you, whatever is easiest for you, just let me know. So again, Articles 1 and 2 tonight. I'm going to talk about some big picture things as well. We probably want to schedule work sessions like this both in February and March. So if we have kind of those, if we can do 3 sessions and get through the bulk of the resolution, I think that would be good to talk about it as a group. And again, if you all want to meet or talk about it individually, or give me written feedback, whatever is easiest, I'm very flexible. Anybody want to make any comments or have any questions so far?
I just have 2 general questions real quick. One is, what is the anticipated deadline that you think this will all be wrapped up?
So, Michelle, if you want to go to the next slide. where we're going.
There you go.
So we've scheduled kind of a presentation to the public for March 13th. And so that's, not everything has to be 100% ironed out by then, but we want it to be in pretty good shape for that. Hopefully we can get some, some kind of feedback from that, and then one last round of revisions, and then we would hope to kind of launch the official adoption process at the end of March or maybe early April. So it would go through kind of the normal zoning amendment process. It would be a zoning change like any other. So it would, in a way, it would be similar to a rezoning, except we're rezoning everything.
From your perspective, Robin, you've been here long enough. You've worked with the old code. I'm glad to see they've separated Evans Farms out of this. I'm also glad to see that Lewis Center and that village was centered out, because now we don't have to explain the grandfathering in of all those situations, and plus the differences that are there in Lewis Center. All right. My next question is regard more to your experience with both. What would you say, if there are any major changes between the code that we've been living with for decades versus what they've come up with?
Yeah. So there are big differences, and part of it is that the big differences will change depending on the area that you're in. Obviously, you just mentioned Lewis Center Village and Evans Farm, which are pretty unique neighborhoods in Orange Township. Part of our impetus for doing this is that because everything has been done up until this point in Orange Township, everything has been done through plan districts. So every neighborhood has its essentially unique zoning code. And so what we're trying to do is make it more uniform, so that the neighborhoods have one set of rules, with the exception of Evans Farm and Lewis Center Village, that everything is uniform across the township. It won't, we don't have to look up a different setback for one area versus another area.
How much did the 23 overlay come into this? Since, that was already set to be some standards, we wanted to move through quickly. Did some of those standards now start to apply if you're going to say, okay, here we're going to try to make this all nearly the same? It would seem that some of those 23 overlay standards.
Exactly. And so, we're trying to do that for the commercial areas as well, to try to make it more uniform, because, in some of our current plan districts on US 23, they have great standards in place. They have everything exactly the way we want them. Some of the plan districts are from the 70s, and they have, there's literally nothing that we can enforce. So we're trying to make things more uniform. The 23 overlay still does exist in this current draft code. It's basically the same as it is now. In general, I think we're pretty comfortable with the standards that we have in the overlay district, and so we tried to kind of pull those standards into the other general commercial standards.
Yeah, that's okay.
For everything else.
And that would make sense.
Yeah.
My other question is the process of the approval altogether. And we talked a little bit about that, but is that going to be where we're approving each article by itself, or is it a kind of a work sessions and okay, we kind of work everything out? Yep, that's what we like, and approve it like that. And how do you see that?
So, and that's one thing that we want to get feedback from you on, because in terms of the final adoption by the trustees, it kind of has to be in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
But we can take as many meetings at this level, at the zoning commission level, as you all are comfortable with. And I'm certainly open to feedback as to how you want to see that done. Whether it is, if we do these 3 kind of work sessions before we start getting into it, and you guys all feel really comfortable with it, we get it done with one meeting, great. I don't really think that's what will happen, but we'll do as many meetings as it takes in kind of whatever format you all want. We want your feedback.
I'm really interested in where you're at with this, because you've been here in both cases. You worked with Zone Code directly. You saw the code and the way it worked and didn't work and caused problems. Are there any things in this that you think are going to stick out as being, oh, this may be, let's call it a questionable? You're still comfortable with it, because I'm assuming that you're comfortable with everything that's here. Is that correct?
For the most part, yes. I mean, obviously, I am not perfect.
Well, of course. Like all of us.
I can't say that I've caught everything, but in general, I have spent a lot of time with this document. I am comfortable with the standards that are in place in the current draft.
Do you think there's anything in there that's more of a question with respect to things that you've seen that, hey, I'm comfortable with this, but I'm 50% with this, or just a little bit more? Are there things in here that I like, but that other people may not?
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be a long list of those, and things like, for example, the architectural standards for commercial buildings. I'm not an architect. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
I take the recommendations that our zoning consultant has given us, and that is kind of reflected in this draft. But I'm excited to have an architect to review this and actual feedback on it.
I think we can help with that.
Not my area of expertise. So things like that. There are other things that maybe it's my personal preference or my professional opinion, and somebody else has a different vision for what this community should look like, and that's fine.
In all this stuff, I already wish, as I sit here, being here part of the township for 30 years, that some of this would have been done 30 years ago. All right, how is this going to impact, change, better, just as you've already talked about, 23, which was done in various zoning and all over the map and written? How could this possibly make some of that better or more uniform, since some things are really not enforceable now? Is it even possible? Because we don't have a lot left to develop that this new code is going to be a part of.
Right, and that is one thing that we kind of kept in mind, is that, Orange Township is not one big open field that is just waiting for development to come in. A lot of this is going to happen over time with redevelopment.
Right.
Which will happen, and it will take time. Obviously, if the trustees enact this zoning code tomorrow, in 2 weeks, Orange Township is still going to look exactly the same.
So this is going to be enforceable.
Yes.
For any redevelopment projects that may come in those 23 south, so they're not going to come in and say, hey, we want to build to these exact standards, these same light heights, these same whatever it is, parking spaces.
Correct, and so there's extensive language in this zoning code that talks about when the new code applies and when it doesn't apply.
Okay.
Because if something pre-existed us changing the rules, then we can't make somebody just change their building or change their parking lot or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you are
There's a section on nonconformities.
Okay.
Just for you.
Excellent. That's my question, is that this is going to be for the next 20 or 30 years as redevelopment as the township grows and changes.
Yeah, and so obviously, it's simple when somebody wants to come in and do a new building, they have to follow the new standards.
Okay.
But when, like for parking, for example, we have language in there, and I forget the exact percentage now, but it's if they're redoing more than 50% of their parking lot, then they have to comply with the new parking lots.
Okay.
If they're just adding 3 spaces or resurfacing, then they don't.
Okay.
So we try to be mindful of
That's
that.
reasonable. Yeah.
Okay, and all that is enforceable with respect to any of that people, if redevelopment comes and they want to change, they have to abide by the new standards and not by what the old ones were.
That is the goal.
So I have 2 sort of generic questions. One is, we've always had problems with single-family lots and density to the point where developers want to push the density to it's almost multi-family. And I know we had talked in the past about maybe having zones of density for single families. How is that addressed? I mean, I'm sure we can go into it in detail,
Yeah.
but just a big overview.
Yeah, so this is one thing that I really want feedback on you
Okay.
all from tonight in particular, and I even have this in my presentation, but we can talk about it now.
Oh, well, actually, we can wait till you get I don't want to upset your wall and
it's
skip.
fine. This is a big issue, and I want to be honest about it.
I just wanted to make sure it was addressed.
Let's see. Actually, Michelle, let's see here.
So, and then the other question I have was just in terms of variances and divergences depending upon which side you're on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of developers have requested for either or, like I said, depending upon whether you're on the commission or on the Board of Appeals. But are the standards for asking for them, have they been tightened? Or because we have a uniform code now, each little development's not its own planned unit development PUD, and it has to adhere to the code? How is that also addressed?
Yeah, so essentially this whole system, this whole rezoning system that we've had for years upon years, the process itself is going to change.
Okay.
So essentially what we've done is we've created all these straight zoning districts, which are different than planned districts. So a straight zoning district means that the property is that zone. Any of the uses that are allowed in that zone, they can build on it. Any of the standards that they can that we have in place, as long as they follow those standards, they can build. Which is different from a planned district, which requires a development plan up front, which is what you all review when you review it well. But it's just a different way of doing that. So what we've done is we've created straight districts with standards that we hope are good. And so we hope that 95% of incoming development can look at any one of those zones and say, okay, this is the zone that fits my project. I want to rezone to that. We do also, as kind of a catch-all, we do have a section here for planned unit developments.
Yeah, I saw
so
that.
It's different than, because currently we have planned single-family, planned multifamily, planned commercial, planned industrial. All that is kind of going away.
Everything's a plan.
And so if somebody has a project and it doesn't fit into any of the buckets that we have, any of the standards that we have, then we allow them to essentially create their own planned district, but they would be coming up with the standards, their own standards. So they would not have any kind of limitations, because essentially our planned districts as we have them set up now are hybrid. They're somewhere between a planned district and a straight district, because a true planned district is the developer says, these are the rules that we would like to have in place. Do you approve them? What we have currently are planned districts where we have, okay, you can come up with some of the rules, but you can't go over 2.0 units per acre. And if you go over that, then it's a divergence. There's no legal and I've searched in the Ohio Revised Code, there is no legal definition for a divergence from a planned district. It does not exist. It's something that we've kind of made up here. And everybody is used to it, and so everybody kind of abides by it. But it's a strange way of doing it.
You bring up an interesting point from a legal perspective in general. And one of my questions was just, will we hear back from the consulting team ever again, a review of their final thoughts or whatever? And then the second thing is, I presume in their consultative nature of doing what they do well for many groups, they do stream everything through the revised code and other things to help ensure no legal challenges will potentially come because of stuff.
And so it is helpful that they are an Ohio-based firm, so they're used to working in Ohio. I would say they're not extremely familiar with townships, and township zoning is a little bit different than municipal zoning. So we have, in some instances, had to kind of guide them and give them some feedback.
And so in that case, is the township legal consultant going to review as well?
Correct.
Perfect.
And so,
So it's enforceable.
Yeah, and so Zone Co was founded by a lawyer. They have lawyers on their staff. They are not in the business of giving legal advice. They are obviously giving us code that they believe is legally defensible, but they are, it's not their responsibility ultimately to say that yes, this is legal. And so we haven't really kind of ironed out what that process will look like with our own legal counsel. We do use both the Delaware County Prosecutor's Office and Burgess, Johnson and Briggs as private legal counsel, so we will probably do a combination of those two. Maybe not line for line necessarily, but obviously big issues. We have run some things by them in the past, but we do a more thorough legal review also.
So does the commission have more questions, or should we let Robin go ahead and?
I just have one question.
Okay.
In terms of customer service, when there are either divergences or regular permits, I see that for each of the permit, they have to, for example, one property, for each of the permit, they have to go through the same process of application plus going to the committee to approve. Is there in terms of customer service, isn't it better if they can do all permits in one application and go once and get?
Yeah, and
so that reduces the cost for the clients and
and
also minimizes the effort for us we can look at the entire divergences of permits holistically for that property.
Yeah, and so that's part of what is attractive about straight zoning districts, which is as long as you comply with the standards, then you don't need to come before this board or come before the Board of Zoning Appeals. As long as you comply, then you just need a permit.
Yeah, that's how it works in other communities. There's a straight zoning code. You do not have to meet before the commission unless you're requesting, let's say, a divergence, or in the other place, a variance, or, for parking, or for, number of units or whatever.
That's very helpful because currently, even for permits, they have to. And sometimes that is costly.
Yeah. So.
So Robin, can you repeat? You said that the divergent is something that we kind of, as a catch-all phrase for us up here. So it is addressed here that we won't see them going forward.
Correct. There will be no such. There's the word divergence is never mentioned in this draft.
So here is my question, just following up to what we had before the sidebar I took you to, was if they meet certain rules, they fall into a bucket. There is no divergence of.
Correct.
So there is a range from which they can choose
Yeah.
for each of them. It's going to be less uniform as how it looks rather than. Is my understanding correct?
In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no, because we have tried to give people a little more flexibility, but we still, in a way, we will have better standards in place, so that the minimum may be a little higher, but then beyond that, they can kind of choose what they want.
Okay.
And Robin and his team really reviewed all of our existing plan districts. So those standards that our existing trends were incorporated in the straight district. So it's not going to be something completely rogue as far as what kind of development comes in. It should fall very well suited into what we currently have here. Because if we did a straight district that wasn't that, then it wouldn't be it wouldn't work. So just trying to find consistency.
All right, so if we're good then, we're sorry for all the questions.
All right, no,
If Robin, if you want to proceed with your presentation and give us the, dare I say, meat and potatoes?
No, this is a great discussion. And some of these I have in here anyway. I'll talk about a little bit more in detail, but these are great questions and things that need to be talked about. So thank you all for being engaged and bringing them up. So Michelle, I think you can go on to the next slide, please. All right, so we'll start with Article 1, which is pretty simple in a way. A lot of it is just legalese. It lays out perks and need. Section 1.03 has the nice list of things that a zoning code is supposed to achieve. Achieving our land use goals, accommodating growth, and fostering vibrancy and resiliency for residents, conserving and enhancing the environment, conserving property values. These are all, this is what zoning does. That's the ambitions of it. Sections 1.06, 1.08, and 1.09 go over rules of interpretation and measurement. That, in general, it's just kind of codifying things that we already do and ways that we already measure things. So there's nothing that's revolutionary there. There is one change that I wanted to kind of bring up at this point because it's in here. Michelle, sorry, can you go to, let's see, page 12 of the PDF zoning resolution? Sorry.
Let's see how quick I am. Okay. You said page 12.
Page 12. So this would be one thing that is a little bit different kind of in terms of how we calculate setbacks. So with the corner lot, the way we currently interpret setbacks, you have one front setback, you have two side yard setbacks, and then you have one rear setback. So this would change things a little bit in that if you're on a corner lot, if there is street frontage, then that is a front setback. So for this example that we have up on the screen, this property would have two front setbacks rather than one front and one side, which is what we currently have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask a question. If the lot goes all the way back to another street,
That is a great question, and Michelle just.
Ding ding.
oh, there it is on the next page.
Michelle, can you go down one more?
Oh yes.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. So, and we don't have a lot of these lots in Orange Township.
Only maybe in Old Lewis Center.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But so the same thing applies, where instead of a front setback and a rear setback, if this property extends to two streets, then it would have two front setbacks. So I guess my question for you is, does that make sense?
Yes. It makes sense.
Is it a reasonable standard?
The front setback.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The front setback would typically be larger than the side. Like if so.
But oftentimes, depending on the district, a lot of times it's smaller than the rear yard setback.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of in the middle.
Question I have, this makes perfect sense for residential.
Right.
All right, so if you have a large commercial block that literally takes up the whole block, are there maximum setbacks, like some jurisdictions have, so that commercial development faces the road?
You want it to front, like more frontage on the.
Well, that's the whole question, is if usually commercial development, some jurisdictions, they have minimum and maximum setbacks, so the commercial development fronts the road. But if the commercial development is large enough, you could have, one road being fronted, but then the rear street having a massive parking.
So
And is there an option to say, okay, you have to have parking in the interior, or I guess, and that might be better addressed like maybe in the commercial code?
Right, yeah. And so for some of the districts, we do have a maximum
Okay.
front setback, and in general, we'll get to this, once we get into parking, there are provisions that the majority of the parking has to be to the side or the rear of the building.
Okay.
I guess my only question becomes, how much will it limit the size of the home, so to speak, if you have these minimum, minimum,
it's a good question. I mean, in general, I think the front setback, again, with this through lot example, I think
sorry.
and I'm okay with there being a front end, I mean, setbacks for both, but it seems like one maybe could be smaller to allow, or one maybe could have a minimum, so to speak.
I'm open to that. So
I think it would really be the corner lot that would probably be the most impacted, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So and so for the through lot, and I'm looking at the neighborhood zone. So the front setback is 20 feet, and then the rear setback is 30 feet. So if they have two front, then they actually get more that way. It would be if it's to the side, as in the corner lot, then yes, they would have to be 20 feet off the road, so that would reduce the usable area of that property, but it is only a difference of 10 feet.
Yes, I hear you. I still think it seems like there ought to be a possibility of the sides being different. You know, you have to do one on this side. This is the minimum. One side must be a minimum of 10 or 15 or whatever. The other side a minimum of 20 or whatever. It just seems like they ought to be slightly off to accommodate for.
So how would you?
I don't have a problem with having corner lots have basically two front setbacks. I think for me it's for two reasons. One, it's for visibility around the corner. And then two, I do generally like a uniformity when you go down the street. It doesn't have to be all exactly on the same line, but variances of 3 feet or 5 feet just to give it a little pattern is fine. But I hate it when you see a building like right on the front lot line, and then you see one that's like 30 feet back, especially when it comes to like commercial with parking and things like that. So I do like that. Like I said, it doesn't have to be rigid uniformity, but within certain parameters, I think it would be good.
Yeah, I think the standards still are, you still have the setbacks for roadways, and that gets to be set. And the other one, which you're talking about, which I absolutely love as well, is having that uniformity and distance between the structures and those houses and buildings as you're going down the street. So I think those need to remain.
I'd like to think the intent of this is just to really define how we review corner lot applications, because it has varied depending on who is reviewing it. I'll be honest, if I've interpreted it as wherever the address is where the front is. Some people have determined wherever the driveway is where the front is, so it's very loose.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of my own home, which sits on the corner, and the sides are not the same, and I remember even when they originally drew the lines, they wanted to move it up front and that kind of stuff, and I pushed it back further, but it fit whatever the rule was. And I think that the uniqueness and now of course my home is angled also, but I think the uniqueness of a neighborhood allows, particularly with the price of some of these homes here, that uniqueness in and of itself brings value versus cookie cutter, so to speak. And that's what I'm looking for is the.
But wouldn't the uniqueness come with most people who are not building in a neighborhood? Because we know we're going to have to stick to certain standards, but if you get that unique house or that custom build, you usually have your nice private line a lot of times, and that brings that uniqueness to it.
I would say this is just sort of for me. A good residential designer or architect can get a program to fit on a lot, and the extra 10 feet isn't going to matter. The only time it matters is if you have a cookie cutter builder that doesn't do custom homes. And then they're the ones that go and be like, well, my building won't fit on the lot.
Yeah.
I was like, you can revise the building to fit on the lot.
And this is just for the primary structure. This is not like swimming pools, decks either. So
I had a question regarding that. If you go to the third example where you have both the front and the rear to be front, and you have now 20 feet, and the let's say a sunroom or a deck is further constructed, right? And you have 10 feet of that additional structure. Now, that gives you like really 10 feet only between the road and the deck, let's say, in this case, right? So,
Correct.
Well, wouldn't the deck have to follow the setback requirements?
So we're doing something a little bit different, well, depending on the plan district, because some of these plan districts have this provision already and some do not, where we do have separate setbacks for accessory structures.
Okay.
That's a change.
To allow.
yeah, not all do. It's depending on the subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay. So that way, if you have a garage, is that considered an accessory structure if it's freestanding?
I believe it would, yes.
Okay.
So, freestanding garage.
We'll take a look at that when we get to residentials.
But hey, we know that setbacks are going to be a good conversation to have.
All right, anything else we want to talk about with this? Okay, so that was, and thank you for that discussion, that was good. That was kind of the one thing that I had kind of pulled out from Article 1 that was kind of different than how we do things today. The rest of it is mostly legalese, and that's about it. Section 1.10 does have a nice little frequently asked questions that I like. Just for people who are not familiar with zoning code, it's a good little user-friendly guide. And for those of us who are digital creatures like me, if you click, it has little links in the FAQ where you click it and then it takes you to that section of the document.
Oh, fancy.
Yes. All right. Anyone else want to talk about anything for Article? Hearing none, let's move to Article 2. So this is the longest article of the document. It's about half the document. So
We'll be halfway done after today, right?
If we make it through all of Article 2.
So we're not going to go through every standard. It's just not realistic for us to do all that tonight, but please take a look at those on your own time, and if you want to set up meetings with me to talk about certain districts or certain standards, by all means just reach out. So here's kind of the list. So most of the I guess our intent is to move every existing property into a similar new zone. We're not trying to move properties from residential to commercial through this. We're trying to match them up with the corresponding district. So I've just kind of listed out all the districts here, and we do have some new districts as well. So there will be some new things and some things that change a little bit. So in general, the current planned commercial that we have, in general, those will move to the commercial corridor, which is mostly going to be along 23 and the occasional commercial property that we have that's on another arterial. So that will move into commercial corridor. We do have a new zone in campus institutional. So that's for public and semi-public uses. So it would be a different zoning to accommodate for schools, churches, utilities, things like that, that hopefully give those properties a little more flexibility, and so they're not trying to work with residential standards, and trying to keep that in mind as well. Multifamily will move into community living, so that's kind of a grouping for multifamily as well as assisted living, nursing homes, things of that nature. I mean, we don't have many. I'll leave it at that.
So is our current quote-unquote housing for the elderly now moving to the community living?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we only have 2 of those, right?
Yeah, we have two properties in Orange Township that are zoned planned elderly residential districts, so those would move into the community living.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed. Thank you.
So as we talked about, Evans Farm would have its own district, and there's 2 sub-districts in there. So one is just the residential, mostly single-family portion of Evans Farm, and the other would be the commercial mixed-use portion of it. So we tried to take those standards and what exists currently and carry them forward. All right. So planned industrial would move into flex employment, which is just kind of what we would be calling that moving forward. It overlaps a little bit with planned commercial, so it would open some of those industrial properties up to slightly more commercial uses, but not the other way around. Again, we would have Lewis Center Village be its own district. Those lots are terribly small. They don't work with our current zoning without a million variances. There was a gentleman a year and a half ago who wanted to build a new home in Lewis Center Village, and it was literally 13 variances that he needed to just get with his house.
Yeah.
So this would hopefully try to take care of those issues.
Does it also address the small commercial uses, neighborhood commercial uses that are there?
Correct, yeah. So it would be mixed use in a sense, where some small scale commercial, neighborhood commercial would be permitted.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Robin, Lewis Center Village is right there on Lewis Center Road. Those little small houses, we have that little gift shop and the ice cream store.
Hence
Yeah.
why I asked with the gift shop, the ice cream store.
Right along the railroad tracks across
It
from
is.
Evans Farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, since you've labeled these districts, all good, I can see Lewis Center remaining in and of itself. And the real question is, somebody have a new development says, oh, we want to use the Evans Farm in this new development. Or we really want to use the Lewis Center Village in this new development.
I mean, technically, it could happen, yes. I
Are they
think that's very unlikely,
Okay,
but
are they rezoning it as part of the Lewis Center Village, or are they rezoning it as a PUD planned unit development with those guidelines?
do you want
Do
to?
you mean for?
So if they wanted to use the
if you
Lewis
had a
Center,
developer
Something
come
new,
along,
something new. I mean, rather than, hey, they're separated because then they're applicable to that.
yeah.
Applicable only to Evans Farm, applicable only to Lewis Center. They're not applicable to something brand new.
Right.
Or what happens if someone has property next to Lewis Center Village and says, hey, I want to expand the village because I want to expand that look, but also get the density bonuses.
Yeah,
that.
I mean,
How does this...
It'd be possible.
it would be possible. Somebody could request that. Doesn't mean that you as the zoning commission or the board of trustees has to say yes, but they could request.
But if you didn't have an enforceable law or rule or something solid, it'd be difficult to impossible to deny it, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, we have our comprehensive land use
Right.
plan, our zoning map. If they want to put a Lewis Center Village District on Orange Road, and that's not what our planning vision is, that would be a pretty
That'd be enough. That'd be
good
enough
argument.
That'd be enough, so you don't have to say
That'd be
that
enough to stand up in court if
That- and
somebody
you
sued you for turning it down.
sort of,
Yeah, I mean, it's a
know,
rezone, it's legislate, yeah.
Yeah.
Can it be made explicit in this document that these zoning codes, Lewis Center Village Code is for this particular?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, that would be, that would be.
Yeah.
That's my real question,
Yeah.
is that you've separated them out, good, I get that. But we really want them, especially for Lewis Center,
Yeah.
to be limited
Yeah.
to Lewis
That makes a
Center.
lot of sense, in section 1.04, it talks about the comprehensive plan, and makes reference to that, so there is, that's kind of our binding, legal avenue for, saying, the comprehensive plan will dictate
Okay,
reason, well,
Okay.
maybe not dictate, but will influence rezoning decisions.
And that's gonna, and even, I still would think the Lewis Center Village District would probably be one of the most restrictive ones, so it probably wouldn't be in the best like, it's just, this is addressing the current issues that we have there, so for a new developer, I don't think that would be the first district they would want to choose, because this is probably the, density, there's still set standards that are restrictive compared to your typical single family development. And then Evans Farm too is so customized for that district that we would probably recommend the mixed use district to them.
exactly. I'm not as concerned
Yeah.
about the Evans Farm, because the Evans Farm is also already coming from some new thinking and some new development plans. It's more the Lewis Center, because that could also affect the density.
Yeah.
Here I want to build Lewis Center, and now you've essentially increased the density of that development.
to Lewis Center density.
To
So you-
Lewis Center density.
That's true, yeah. That's
So
a
you
good
would
point.
get density bonuses.
Exactly,
As
and
it were.
that's my real point.
That's something to look into.
And I don't have a problem per se if, the new Lewis Center development is, contiguous or like right next to existing Lewis Center where they want to expand the roads and make the little village center bigger. But I would have issues if they put this and tried to put it like on Orange Road or South Old State or, someplace else.
Yeah, I was thinking more of the uses, but to your point, like you can
The
add a bunch
density.
of little tiny homes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
the density could just blow what we have out of the water.
So yeah, I would have no problem if they want to like expand the village
So
core,
you think that
but
is,
not
Right.
recreate it someplace.
but having the planned, what we already have planned is enough to reject it.
Yeah, we'd have to talk to legal. I don't know if it would be like an overlay, or I don't really know
Okay.
how that would
I
work.
think that's an issue
We'll
to
let
be
legal figure it out.
the legal to be discussed.
Yeah,
No, but thank you for bringing it up.
no, that is a good point. Yeah, it's a really good point.
All right, we're sorry. Carry on.
I'm here.
What was that?
This is why I'm here. I wanted to hear this and pass
Yeah.
on, so it's really helpful.
All right, so we will have an actual mixed use district. Currently, we do have some mixed use in Orange Township, but it's, I put it in there, it's kind of a Frankenstein of current zoning where it's either plain commercial that allows for residential or residential that allows for commercial uses. So this would be its own unique mixed use district with its own standards.
What a concept.
Yeah.
That's what we want everybody to choose.
Yeah.
As long as they make it walkable.
Exactly. So is that something that was my question?
Oh,
At the
yeah.
end of it, I was going to ask, can we make this place more walkable for kids to play around? and all?
Yeah, so we do, and it's not necessarily in our agenda this evening, but we do have standards that kind of enforce walkability in a variety of aspects, particularly with sidewalks, multi-use paths, and then configuration of parking lots as well as just kind of trying to tackle those design issues to make it a more walkable field. and then, pretty simple, the SFPRE, single family plan residential that we currently have would go into the neighborhood zone. That's a pretty easy one.
And the neighborhood zone still has the density that was,
So let me get to density in a little bit.
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we're gonna spend a lot of time on that neighborhood
I know.
zone.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I kind of pulled that out for us to talk about
Yeah.
in more detail. So this would be another new zone, the Parks and Open Space Zone. So there would be a unique zoning district for parks or other green space that doesn't prohibit development necessarily, but deters it. We want to keep our green space green.
Because most of it's in farm residential, right?
No, so it would truly be parks.
I'm sorry, so the existing zones that are in place, or
So
like where are
at
parks
the bottom
now?
of the screen, so the farm residential would go into, we do have a rural residential zone.
sorry, I think I misworded that. But how are parks are zoned currently?
Oh, yeah, generally they are.
Okay, yeah,
So they are farm residential now.
Right.
yeah.
Oh.
So
It's just weird.
Yeah. But this parks and open space zone is for like Row Park or like the Township Park or I guess technically High
Elm
Banks
Creek.
or Elm Creek, yeah.
High Banks. So technically, I think High Banks can come in now and ask to build one single family home on High Banks.
That would be interesting. Although they do have some old homes there
Yeah.
and some old barns.
Yeah.
They do.
All right, then the PUD is the planned unit development, so we kind of touched on that already. That would be the catch-all plan district that if somebody wanted to do a project that didn't fit into anything else, then they would have the option. We do have not really standards, but kind of guidelines. So again, it wouldn't be a planned district, but there's a strict density limit. There's a planned district, and we kind of have more general criteria to evaluate that. But we'll get to that in another section.
But if the developer basically is wishing to create a new plan district, they'll be able to do so. Is that the gist of that?
For the RCOD, which is the overlay, so basically it's remaining mostly the same. We have had some internal discussions about maybe getting rid of it, and we may kind of see how this new code goes for a little bit, and if it kind of eliminates the need for the RCOD, we may eliminate it at some point in the future. But for now, we're keeping it as is. We've kind of shortened it because like the overlay district has different landscaping standards than what's in our current code, but this new draft code has its own landscaping standards, so we just deleted that portion from the overlay language. So it's mostly the same, but it is in there for now. And then again, the FR1 farm residential large lot that we have left would go to the new rural residential zone.
And that's 5 acres or more, or?
So the minimum lot size would drop. I think the current minimum lot size in FR1 is 1.98 acres. Don't ask me why.
1.98 acres.
Yep, and I think the minimum lot size would drop to 1 acre.
1 acre? Okay.
That's been a variance in the past too, so.
All right. Just curious.
All right, and then, so my first note on the next slide, and the overlay is likely the same, we discussed that. One thing that we'll note, and we won't get into great detail on this tonight, is that conditional uses are expanded from what they are now, just because you'll kind of have that with straight districts a little bit more, because there needs to be a little bit more flexibility. So a conditional use is something that doesn't come before the zoning commission, but actually goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, where we're looking at this zoning district and we think, okay, this use might go there depending on the surrounding context. So the property owner would have the ability to come in and request that use be approved from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Do some of the previously differently zoned organizations have to come and apply for rezoning then? For example, a school or something would have to rezone, or they're automatically given?
No, so we would, like a school or a church, we would move them into the campus institutional district when we're doing this update. But in the future, if somebody wanted, if somebody had like an FR1 or a rural residential property in the future that they wanted to put a church on, then they could either apply for a conditional use or a rezoning.
Public schools, I don't.
Right.
Well, would they?
Or even churches?
Like churches, yeah, but I don't know if public schools would have to go through the zoning changes, right? I mean, ideally, it would be nice if they're on the campus.
Now that you say that, I think.
But we can, like, when we make amendments, we can just update the zoning map to reflect that. So
Does that answer your question?
So they are automatically going to
public institutions,
Yeah.
but I think that's a good legal question. But I think churches would have to go through the zoning. Oh, we can. I don't know.
Well, not when we're doing this update, but in the future, if somebody wanted a new church.
They would have to rezone.
Yeah.
Or
If
they
they-
could have it as a conditional use in the rural residential.
Residential, yeah.
Like it is now.
What if a church wanted to be on the commercial corridor?
I think it might be conditional use.
So it's.
I don't see it here. That's one.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just playing devil's
Well, actually,
advocate,
yeah,
thinking.
religious assembly, that's a church,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we'll make sure churches are. I know there's permitted in some fashion in each.
So it's
I
here.
don't know if we can prohibit one.
So I will bring up one thing, and maybe you figured out where it belongs, is data centers. Dennis, I think you were here when Amazon was thinking about putting a data center off of 23, and there was a big neighborhood discussion about whether a data center is a commercial use or an industrial use, merely because of the amount of noise it produces, and you have to have an electric substation associated with it. And it's sort of like a new building type that is now part of the era of, chip manufacturing, data centers, all the stuff brought to us. Hopefully we won't have cryptocurrency mining, but that's a new one that's coming in some areas.
Do you think calling it data center is that a good umbrella for all that? Or-
Your guess is as good as mine because y'all are the planners.
Okay. 'Cause I don't know if we added that in.
I mean, it seems to me that would all be more industrial than,
I think it should be.
Exactly.
I personally think it should be industrial.
yeah.
I just don't know
but
if they called it out.
I don't think it's called out in the
Yeah, that's a good point.
definitions. And I don't want to see. I don't want to see the issue come into the township again because there were some contentious meetings, shall we say?
Yeah, it's a really great point because depending on
Coming
how
from
they.
Ohio, we bring all those projects to the state, right? So
Yeah, and we lost the data center, which I think would have been great, but the location perhaps they chose for wasn't the best suited.
Sure.
And so that maybe if we had provided more guidance as to where to locate the data center, there wouldn't have been some drawn out zoning process where they decided, let's just move someplace else.
Well, exactly, because if it came in as industrial, it wouldn't have gotten into those
Issues,
issues.
exactly.
So industrial is probably
That's where it should go.
I feel.
In my opinion, that's where it
yeah.
should go.
that is where it is currently in New Albany.
Mm-hmm.
Right
We have-
now,
yeah, we
it's
have-
all coded as New
We have warehousing and logistics. Would that?
That's different. Warehousing and logistics is like what you would see
Traffic,
by,
trucks. Yeah.
we'll say Lockhorn, Rickenbacker,
Yeah, much
where they have
different.
logistics centers by the airport
Yep,
where
yep.
freight comes in, it goes into a warehouse, and then it gets shipped out.
Well, we can
by trucks.
We should add a data center.
But I would say, data center, technology center, I don't know what you want to call it, but
So
you might
there
have good
are-
ideas.
There are areas there are places where they have various levels of industrial also, light industrial, which is warehousing plus light assembly, which is what our
That's what we do here.
That's what we do here.
Right.
That is light industrial.
That's light industrial.
There is medium industrial and there is heavy industrial. So Intel is heavy industrial.
Okay, Intel's considered heavy?
Heavy industrial because of the runoffs and pollutants, all of that.
Okay,
that
I
you have
didn't
to
realize it
manage.
had pollutants. I'm sure it has power issues.
The size of the building and structure.
Yeah,
They have water and all of that that needs a lot of water.
treatment.
So water treatment and all of that on site. It's all considered heavy industrial. There is medium industrial where someone is bringing product outside assembling, but also modifying a little bit, like adding a CNC machine here and there. So that is medium industrial. Typically, we look at zoning before we bring in a client to show them, because it doesn't make sense if the zoning does not match.
Exactly.
So
how can we?
What are the data centers considered then?
Oh, light industrial.
Oh, that's still considered light? Oh,
Yeah.
I think if somebody asked me with our code today, how would you classify a data center, I would say light industrial. That would be my answer, but it would be nice to have that in the code too.
Yes, because they tried to put it in a commercial area off of 23, which wasn't perhaps ideal.
No.
Now it's homes.
Well, yes, exactly, which... Well, they've built the homes. They haven't built the commercial part that's supposed to go with the homes.
Yeah.
But data centers typically require a lot more setbacks because of the noise and the lights.
That was some of the issues of the location chosen.
Where were they proposing?
Home Road in 23.
Oh.
Sorry.
Along Gooding where the courtyards are Clear Creek are.
And then on the other side is...
that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's like where, Epcon is on the back half, and then the front half has been set aside for commercial on 23. But originally, that whole area, they wanted to put a data center. And it wasn't ideal because it was next to the residences that are behind there on,
Yeah.
but anyway, enough said. But just my request would be to add
No, it's a great
sort
point.
of data centers, technology centers, and then, you have a good idea of whether or not do we need to take a look at, heavy industrial, medium industrial, and light industrial, and give them categories to make sure that like heavy industrial, or is it next to maybe a church?
So we don't have medium industrial, but we separate out light industrial and then heavy industrial. Heavy industrial is only a conditional use, even in the industrial zone.
Okay.
It would require additional use.
Okay.
And technology center, I would make sure to separate out. Technology center does not mean an office, an IT office. There is confusion when you say technology center.
Yeah,
We don't want to discourage any employment opportunities, right?
And it's not like a school technology zone.
Exactly.
It'd be like data centers, Google's, Bitcoin,
We can define it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
like I said, hopefully it's not Bitcoin. I have issues with it.
I apologize, I have 7:45 hard stop tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys can continue. I wanted to make sure I got my questions. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Similar, so that's why I texted you earlier to ask you how.
Yeah, so
I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah.
We can keep going as long as you guys want, or we can stop whenever you feel it's appropriate to do.
I have a suggestion. I think everybody should be here when we start talking about like the mixed use in the neighborhood zones and the Lewis Center, perhaps. We've already covered Lewis Center pretty well, but if it's all right, if we could continue with some of the other, hopefully non-contentious.
Today or
What?
Sorry, and before Carthy leaves, and I do want to bring up one contentious thing because I do want to get it out there. Obviously we don't need an answer tonight necessarily.
I have a question too about when we're talking about light industrial and all those things. I'm thinking about dispensaries because they're all over the place, and we're not gonna have the medical marijuana dispensaries because they're everywhere. And
we have it on our list to add.
Yeah,
Good.
so right
Because
now
it's-
there's a moratorium on medical marijuana
Okay.
here.
Okay.
We have not, the board has not decided whether or not to do the same for recreational marijuana. But it seems like if we do permit it, we would have some type of zoning restrictions,
Okay.
whether limiting it or having it in a certain specific area.
Because I know we had prohibited medical marijuana dispensaries.
And retail, anything
Yeah.
that's
So,
production or sales, yeah.
yeah, I remembered when that first came up. Yeah, good
yeah, that
point.
was my question.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right, Michelle, can you go to the next slide real quick, please? So these are the standards for the neighborhood zone, which we can get more in depth on at a later time. One thing I do want to bring to your attention, because I want to get this conversation out early, in this list of standards, density is not on there. There is, at the recommendation of our consultant, we do not have a density restriction. In practical terms, there are density restrictions because there is a minimum lot size and there's a minimum open space requirement. But it's not something, we're trying to look at housing creation through different lenses.
Yeah.
And trying to get people away from, well, how many homes per acre is it? Because that's not always the best standard for the quality of the development.
I like it.
So
I think it's great.
that
So
is,
this has already changed. I can see the numbers have already gotten
right, yeah.
reduced from what they were, which kind of lends itself, just as you said, as to make it more generic and talk about these distances rather than density.
Correct.
Talk about it in a different pattern.
All right, so I'm hearing.
Yeah,
No contention.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it
This is
makes sense.
And then I have a question. Does it have a minimum and maximum square footage for the building size, or it's just whatever you want to build as long as it fits in the setbacks?
It is whatever you want to build as long as it fits in the city.
Okay, because I know like right now we have like a minimum house size. Like we can't have tiny houses.
Correct.
So if you have a square mile of just open land, flat, what is the maximum that you can go?
Whatever the
With the
setbacks
open
are.
spaces and all of that.
Well, I could do some math real fast because whatever the size of your property is, you would have to. There's a couple factors. You would divide it up by the lot size, and then also have to make sure, which is not on here now, would have to maintain the minimum open space requirements. So, I mean, we could probably not today, but maybe we can do some mock-up things just to kind of show. You're not going to be the only ones that ask that too, so.
It's going to be a question.
Yeah.
I can imagine, so
I'm sure
having
a
that.
developer in the old mindset is going to be like, I have 10 acres, how much can I put on it?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Well, good. I'm glad that we're all on the same page with that, because if we weren't all on the same page for it, then we would need to do some revisions and start those quickly. So, thank you for that. Is there anything we want to talk about as a group of 3 minutes that Carly?
Well, I have another question with respect to rear setback. What's always come up is that the rear setback was always with respect to structures. Is that going to change with 30 feet with respect to the house? Or is that going to include the deck or any other structures attached to the house?
So, and Michelle, if you want to go to the next slide.
Look at you. You're being so forward-thinking.
He's reading our minds.
Yes, he is.
So it's in the small text, it's in the fine text here. It's table note number 4, minimum rear setback for accessory structures is 10 feet. And then actually on the previous one, maximum projection from primary structure is 10 feet also. So that's saying that porches and decks can approach 10 feet.
I think that's great. I think that's great to put it like that and put that We've struggled with those in the past.
The in-ground swimming pools also fall into that same thing, right?
Swimming pools do have a separate standard.
Okay.
They do, swimming pools have a greater setback, which I believe is 25 feet, except for 23, which is 50 feet. So if you have property next to US 23, you can put a swimming pool 50 feet away. That seems up.
Okay, 25 feet. Okay.
40 feet structure, that almost seems tall for a neighborhood district. Do we have anything that's already that big in a neighborhood district?
It's 35 currently.
Yeah, 35 is usually standard.
Yeah.
Not
Was there any reason to increase that one in particular?
that I know of.
It was sometimes like the, what's it?
Gable?
Yeah,
Gables.
like those.
So different jurisdictions look not at the gable, but like the average of the roof for the 35, and usually they don't include like, not that we have any houses like it, but like Victorians with turrets or
Yeah, we don't have anything that kind of size. But
yeah, we don't have anything that kind of
are
style.
3-story,
Yeah, or like churches. The
Yeah.
church might be 35, but the
But that's
steeple
that's
can
going to be
taller.
commercial, or the new district.
Yeah, we should probably define what building height is.
We do. It is in 1.0.
Oh, so, okay.
So
So it wouldn't
this
be in the
one-
definitions.
Yeah.
It, 1 point, okay.
10.
Again, great discussion. I would have loved to be here, but I have to take care of something tonight. Thank you. Thank you for starting this process.
Hey, we're excited for you to be part of it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will not continue on. Could you have?
Yeah, because I have another engagement as well.
All right.
So-
We'll look at building height.
We'll try to tidy up.
Yeah. So thank you for the comment on the height. I'll look into that and make sure that it's clarified because I can't find the section right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why that would have been heightened when everything else,
Right. And if we want to keep it at 35, then that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Yeah, do we, yeah, okay.
So one thing, and I can send out an email on this so that they can participate as well. But for our next session on this, the date in February, we'll,
As long as you send it out, it'll show up on my calendar, which is a good thing. That's absolutely awesome that does that.
Good.
I love it.
Is it the second one, the 13th?
so there's 2 meeting dates in February, so February 13th or February 27th. I don't know if anybody has a preference for one of those. But we can figure it out for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's no applications, sorry, could you do both, I guess, if that's,
Sure.
Let me check something. I would prefer the 27th. I will double check. I can do the 13th. I need to get my Girl Scout co-leader to handle some Girl Scout
still do
stuff.
that?
Yes, they're all in high school and they still want to be Girl Scouts. So
Oh,
I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
as long as they want a troop, I will be now it's more of a facilitator than a leader. I drive them around. I arrange activities and I drive them around.
You ended it right. Okay.
All right. So yeah, if you want us to go ahead and send out an email with the next 2 dates, I think that would be the best to coordinate with everybody. I would like to have as much of the board here as possible while we review this, just to get everyone's feedback, because I think everybody has something to bring to the table. I don't know how other people on the commission feel, but unfortunately that might make the process longer than I'd like it to be.
Well, we want to we want to get this done,
Okay.
but we also want to do it right. So we appreciate your time, your expertise.
Yeah, and this part of the approval process with the zoning commission is, in our opinion, the most crucial for the review. And this is the board that, you know, if we need to go page by page or line by line on certain sections, like, this is the time to do it. So, you know, hope this is a living document. I'm sure we'll make changes. I don't want to say too frequently, but, you know, I'm sure we'll catch stuff over time and make amendments throughout the years, but I'd like to get a solid framework in place.
So are there any, I know we skipped ahead to the residential before people left. Are there any other commercial issues? I know we addressed.
There might be some that I pull out, and we'll want to look at the uses also, which we didn't get into tonight, but we'll want to, and part of the, because in the districts and zones, it's not like there's setback standards and some standards in that section, but then there's more in later sections of the code. So like we have one section that's all about parking and parking lot designs, so that it's not necessarily in the commercial corridor text, but it's in a different part of the document. So we will get to it.
So, one thing I noted was you have, in the commercial corridor, you have drug, alcohol, or psychiatric treatment center not permitted. Where would those be allowed in our?
Probably flex employment.
Okay.
Do you think it's worthwhile to have for our next meeting to talk more like just uses in general, or?
For me, yes, just because of what I've seen in the past, like our data center, and I know people have issues with drug, alcohol, or psychiatric treatment, but I sort of see it as a medical use, as opposed to a institutional use, and so, you know, it needs to be somewhere in Lewis Center. Now, where the best spot is, I don't know, but I do think, you know, like you have group homes as well, or supportive housing, or, you know, assisted living or whatever. I do think perhaps we should address where uses should be, you know, the best zoning district for uses. Dennis, I don't know how.
Well, I think I've got volumes of medical, and here's the other issue that we've failed. Absolutely 100% failed. I actually fought for it one of those times. Is small hotels.
Yes, and I thought
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, we have 30,000 people and all this stuff, and it's like that we have failed. Obviously, there's been people or things here that have been opposed to it, and I think we are hurt by our rejection of that. I really do. And I'm not sure. I don't think I think we stopped the building height at 50 feet, and I think that was probably fine. I think you can still fit those small hotels, and I don't think we need to change that, but I think that needs to be in the uses, at least.
Yeah, so, and that is, I saw permitted in commercial, I believe now.
It's commercial. Right?
So, and yes, I think, you know, we should have those types of facilities here as well. You brought up a good point.
We're going to have one. 23, that's the only one I can think of. In the library.
Well, I think they've talked about, and we provided one that Evans Farm could have like a small, either bed and breakfast.
I remember one you were talking
hotel.
about, and that one got a lot of bad press that wasn't accurate.
Right, it did get a lot of
It got a lot of bad press that wasn't accurate, because that was going to come before BZA at the time. So I actually did some research into that. And called one of the facilities and people in Toledo where one of those facilities was located. Yeah, and I was prepared, you know, to give that kind of my own presentation from that, and then it just went away. But I remember that when I actually did the research, that was overblown to a lot of negative that didn't belong to it.
Okay, so long story short, yes, I think addressing uses and where they would be appropriate. So, because I think most of your, the way this is laid out, there's like tables of uses for each section. it doesn't necessarily have to be, maybe we just look and say, home-based businesses, where are they
Yeah.
allowed?
Well,
Commercial,
and maybe-
residential, conditional maybe?
Yeah. Maybe we should wait till the 27th, just because we're working with legal on how we're handling marijuana right now. So
Okay.
trying to get
I think
incorporate that. So.
Yeah, and I think if you
Now
can,
that it's been approved?
I think if you can take that out the same way we take the alcohol and other pornography and things, I think if that can be a rejected use, the way those
Yeah,
things
I'm still
are,
trying to
that'd
get
be
direction
great.
from the board on whether or not because if we prohibit it entirely, it's a moratorium the trustees do. But if we limit it, it becomes more of a zoning thing. So
Yeah.
hopefully I have some direction by then.
Yeah, so yeah, either, and I agree with Dennis that if we permit the use, it should be like with alcohol sales, pornography, some of the other,
Adult entertainment.
adult entertainment type
we've
stuff,
rejected,
gambling,
right.
whatever, that we have set aside areas for, and that it can't be close to schools, churches, residential districts, whatever.
I think right now, don't we have those non-even uses that are allowed in Orange Township?
So you can't technically prohibit it entirely, but you can make
Okay.
it extremely difficult.
Okay.
So
We've gotten away with because we don't have those facilities.
yeah.
Yes,
We've
but
gotten away with it.
We have taken out
they
the
were- you
yeah.
can't reject them, so
Okay.
I think in the past they were zoned industrial. Is where
Yeah,
they were
there's
allowed.
like a 10-page section in our current code for
Okay.
adult entertainment, which
Okay.
we are not including in
Well,
this
we've
one.
done the right thing. Whatever we've done, I think if marijuana gets stuck in that same category,
Yeah,
I think would be
that's good points.
ideal.
would be the preferential, I think.
Okay.
So that was an actually. Is there anything else the remaining members of the commission want to address before we adjourn, since we've barely have quorum? You're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Michelle, do you have anything to bring up before us?
No, just thanks for letting me be part of this.
No,
I still
thank
have
you.
zoning is
Thank
a
you
little
for showing up.
true to my heart. I don't think I'll be at all the meetings, but I'm hoping the insight that you guys provide, I can pass that along to the trustees in hopes of a seamless approval process. So
Okay.
your feedback's really crucial, and I appreciate it.
Okay. Robin, do you have anything else for us?
I don't think so. I will try to do a better job. I apologize for kind of not having all my ducks in a row more in advance this time, so that you kind of know what topics will be discussing.
We
think
were
you're-
totally new to this, so I think that falls on us
Well,
in
yeah,
terms of.
I think it does too.
For how we do this.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We're all trying to-
I mean, this is.
I'd give yourself more credit. You were prepared for most of the questions tonight, so.
So, like I said, I think it just sort of falls upon us, because you have 5 members here with their own experiences and background and areas of interest. So then, unless there's no objection, I hereby adjourn our meeting. Please let us know. We will establish the next one once everybody can consult their schedules. All right?
Thanks.